So again, you are welcome. So Mr. Ayekle is our presenter today, and Mr. Ayekle has a number of profiles that qualifies him to talk to us about the role of PRAAD in the RTI implementation. He actually has a diploma in public relations from GIJ as well as BA communication from GIJ. And then you also have an MA information studies from the University of Ghana. And amazingly, he has worked for PRAAD for 15 good years. So we can be sure that we are going to learn a lot today about the role of PRAAD in RTI implementation. So without much ado, I'll just hand over to Mr. Ayekle to talk to us. He's going to speak to us for 45 minutes. And afterwards, we'll have 15 minutes to ask questions. But whilst he's talking, if you have any questions, you can just click on chat and then put your questions there. And when the presentation is over, we'll answer all of them. So thank you so much, and you are welcome once again. So Mr. Ayekle, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Host. And good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As I've been already introduced, I'm Godwin Kofi-Mensah Ayekle, and I work with the Public Relations, Public Records and Archives Administration Department. This afternoon, we are to discuss the role of PRAAD towards the effective implementation of the Right to Information Law. So I hope the 45 minutes given to me, justice will be done to the topic. Now, at the end of this discussion, I hope questions in your mind, such as the role of PRAAD plays in the enactment of the RTI law, and also the role PRAAD has in the implementation effort of the RTI. Again, I also hope to address our collaboration with stakeholders to ensure the smooth implementation of the RTI. I also hope there is time to touch on the managing of electronic records in public institutions to help capture the needed information, which will be beneficial to the public and all of us. Again, what systems are have been put in place to ensure that the public institutions are monitored and the record system is put in place up to scratch. So the Right to Information Act, which you all know, came into force this 1st January 2020, and it entails any individual to request any information held by a public institution, regardless of when it was created, by whom, or the form in which it is now recorded. So whether we all know the definition of records, so regardless of form, so whether it's in paper or electronic, film, microfilm, or whatever, it is still termed as record. So whichever system is in place to capture records, we need to capture it and make it available to users. Now, the purpose of the Act is to encourage transparency, accountability, and openness in public institutions funded by the state. Now, PRAAD, let me give us the background of PRAAD before we proceed. Now, PRAAD was officially established in 1996 by the Public Records and Archives Administration Department, Establishment Instrument 1996, LI 1628. That also set up the record class in the civil service. But however, prior to September of 1996, the institution in existence that was managing records at its last stage, as the non-current record, was the National Archives of Ghana, established by the Public Archives Ordinance of 1955, number 35. The functions of the former National Archives of Ghana has since been integrated into PRAAD as one of its 3 divisions. Now, PRAAD was initially established, as I said earlier, through the Establishment Instrument of 1996, LI 1628, and was responsible for the proper and effective management of records in public institutions of government. Now, PRAAD is to provide for the proper administration and management of public records, the preservation of national archives, and follow good record keeping practices. Secondly, PRAAD is to establish and implement procedures for the timely disposal of public records of no continuing value. Thirdly, PRAAD is to advise on best practices and establish national standard service. PRAAD is to establish and implement procedures for the transfer of public records of permanent value for preservation in the National Archives or other archival repositories as may be designated under this act, and then also normally as is done, perform other enactments which may be conferred on it from time to time. Now, the mandate of PRAAD is responsible for managing records in all public institutions from creation to disposition, as well as the management of national archives as mandated by Act 535. So the Public Services Commission Act defines what the public institution is. The PRAAD Act also defines a public institution and public record. So the mission of PRAAD is to preserve Ghana's collective memory and provide public access by facilitating and overseeing the efficient and the public and private sector of the country. Secondly, we are to provide quality services to users through the development of well-trained and committed human resources in PRAAD. Thirdly, we are to ensure quality services to users through the provision of efficient support systems. Last but not the least, we are to preserve, conserve, and develop archives and to prepare finding aids for records in custody. And lastly, enhance PRAAD's capacity to deliver services in the regions by establishing fully functional regional offices. Now, functions of a records office. So PRAAD as an institution is to develop policies, procedures, standards. But then our work is to be carried out in the public institution, basically the records office. And the records office, which people have been still calling registries, they are supposed to handle incoming mails, outgoing mails, register them, and file correspondence. They are also to create, classify, and code files for easy retrieval and access. Again, they are to provide storage facilities for the files they are managing, and then implement the retention and disposal schedule, both the omnibus or general retention schedule and the specific, which Section 7 of Act 535 are supposed to be done by the public institution in collaboration with PRAAD. Now, in managing records, especially current records, management of public institutions also have a role to play. And the role played by management of public institutions is to ensure, in consultation with their line managers, that all record staff are adequately trained in the full range of records duties. So any records officer who finds himself or herself in a records office in any public institution is to be well equipped in all aspects of records. So managing the current, semi-current, the non-current, electronic records, and whatever records that are generated by the institution, the officer is supposed to be abreast and know what to do. Again, management is supposed to ensure, in consultation with its line managers, that all records offices are fully staffed by suitable officers to approve complement levels. So if the registry or records office is supposed to have 10 people, management is supposed to ensure that there are 10 staff in the records office. So you don't provide 2 or 3 staff in the records office, and when they are not performing, you complain. So what is the complement? The approved level of staff needed in every records office is the responsibility of management of the public institution to ensure that staff are adequate in the records office to perform their duties perfectly. Again, management is to give advice and direction to all records officers, all records office staff on their duties. So they prepare their job schedules and work plans and everything for them. And also disciplinary matters in relation to records officers are the responsibility of management. Management is also to conduct regular inspections of records offices, records office services, and make reports to management to ensure that things are being done well. And it's a matter of garbage in, garbage out. So if they are not supervising and inspecting the records offices and providing the needed equipment and logistics for them, then the information officers who may not get the information needed to do their work. And management is also a source of advice and guidance on all aspects of the management of current records to the record staff and the records users. And last but not least, make provision for the career development of all staff of the records office. So if the records officer is there and the public institution thinks they are an island and are not bothered about their career progression and their interest to raise their morale, then there will be encountering problems because if they are not highly motivated, how can they perform their duties? So it behoves on management of public institutions to complement the effort of PRAAD to ensure that records officers are well equipped and they progress in their sort of endeavor. Now, we also now look at the role action officers play in ensuring that records officers perform. So they are to cooperate to ensure that all necessary technical and professional training is provided for records office staff. And this is one issue that some colleagues in the ministries, departments, and agencies have been facing when their opportunities they are neglected because they are records officers. And if you do this to them, you expect them to perform to their maximum. So it behoves is something that public institutions have to look at. Again, the action officers are to monitor the good discipline and standards of attendance. So punctuality is also one thing the action officers will have to look at, lateness and all that, absence from work and lateness to work, or something they have to do, ensure records officers are doing their best. Action officers are also supposed to make provision for the welfare and annual leave arrangement of all records office staff. Sometimes there are only 2 people in the office And when one is on leave and one goes for dispatch, there is nobody in the records office. So if they have the full complement and they are scheduled well, then at all material times, the records offices will perform diligently. Now, they are also action officers must deal with all non-specialized general administrative matters pertaining to the records offices because it is serving them. And we all know records and records offices are the lifeblood of the institutions. Without records, we know most institutions cannot perform. Now, before this, we've talked about management, we've talked about action officers. Now let's look at the users of our records. So they are supposed to deal with records promptly and return them to the records office when they are no longer required. Situations where officers decide to retain or lock up files in their drawers and lockers because they are cash cows, they bring them money. It's supposed to be discouraged if records officers are to perform very well. Another issue is if you are not ready to use the file, then you can use the bring up system when files will be made available to action officers as and when they need it by using the bring up system. Again, files have to be free of ephemerals, duplicates, drafts, loose sheets, working papers, and the file should be made up of actual records, authentic, reliable, and organic records, but not just anything should be placed on the file. So it must also include a relevant file reference on all outgoing correspondence. So no file should leave, no record correspondence should leave the institution without a reference number. And the records office too can reject the letter that comes in without a reference number. Now, officers are to give clear guidance if required on how they wish their mail to be indexed. So officers are allowed to suggest how they want the heading of a file to be, but the records officer also has the power, the power, excuse me, to use that to also advise the officer at the appropriate if you have a classification scheme in place. Because if he's giving you a heading that does not fit, which you cannot derive from your classification scheme, then you need to advise him accordingly, and then I believe he will accept. And again, you need to provide records office with the completed file movement slip whenever they pass a file from one another. So one officer to another, a file pass between them without going through the records office. They should ensure that they use the records file movement slip to notify the records office that a file has moved from office A to office B. Then the records office people can update their records, and then when in terms of census, they will know what to do. And users have to cooperate fully with all necessary records checks. Some officers don't like records officers to conduct census in their office. I don't know their reasons, but then it's difficult for records officers to conduct census. And if census are not conducted and files are identified, then when requests come from the public, it will be difficult to retrieve such information for the information officer. And it is not the fault of the records officer, but then the users of the file. Now, Right Information Act 2019 at 989, which, as I spoke of earlier, came into force this 1st January 2020, and it is an act to provide for the implementation of the constitutional rights of every individual to information held by a public institution, subject to the exemptions that are necessary and consistent with the protection of the public interest in a democratic society to foster a culture of transparency and accountability in public affairs and to provide for related matters. So It's just a matter of making sure that the constitutional provisions are adhered to, that as a citizen you have right to know whatever is going on in government, because government is supposed to be transparent and accountable to the public, because we are using public funds to run the state. Now, Section 2 of the RTI Act enjoins the government to make available to the public general information on governance without an application from a specific person. So the general public, you and I, can make requests and we are supposed to be provided. It doesn't matter my background or your background. You can just walk in or write to an institution to request for an information. And if it doesn't fall within the exempted ones, it has to be given to you at a fee. Now, Section 3 of the Act, that's Section 3.1, says that public institutions are to compile and publish an up-to-date information in the form of a manual. So beginning of every year, every public institution, whether you draw your budget from the consolidated fund or you are set up by an act of parliament, you need to produce a manual. And this manual, per Section 3.2, states what the manual should contain. And it says that a list of the departments or agencies under the public institution. So if you take, for instance, Ministry of Health, we have the mortuary and funeral home regulation agency. We have the hospitals or private health institution regulatory and all that. If we take Ministry of Roads and Highways, there is urban roads, feeder roads. So we state all that. If you take OACS, there is PRAAD, there is Management Services Division, you have the Civil Service Training School, you have the Government Secretariat School, and then the Trade School. So we state all the agencies with this. So maybe PRAAD, we also state in our manual, we state our regional offices. And secondly, you have to list the various classes of information that the public institution has generated. And this can be derived from the file diary of the records office. So the records office staff can easily, going through the file diary, produce the various classes or series of information that are available. And also a list of the types of information that may be assessed. Again, the name, addresses, and any other contact details of the information officer. So you incorporate that also into the manual. You have to state the telephone number, the fax. Now we are not even using fax. So the email address, postal addresses, and any other contact details of the information unit. And then also the arrangements made or procedures established to enable persons to amend personal official records. So it's saying that individuals can request from HR to see their personal files, and if there are things to be amended, things to be done on the file, they can ask HR to correct them for him or her. Now, Section 23, also we are looking at the responsibility of public institutions in respect of access to information. So Section 23A, Section 3, subsection 3A says that a public institution shall generate, process, maintain, and preserve information which is accurate and authentic. And this is a responsibility of the records staff. So the records office staff are responsible to preserve information that is created in the public institution. They have to ensure that it's accurate. So it's on a letterhead, there is a date to rate, there is a reference number, there is a body, and then finally it is signed. to ensure its accuracy. Devoid of tippers and using black pen to pass through some words or to correct some information, then the authenticity can be questioned, because then they can say it has been altered because you've used pen in some areas. Now, Section 3, subsection 3B, says that the public institution shall establish an information unit headed by an information officer who shall facilitate access to information. This is being done by the Ministry of Information and the RTI Commission. So currently, the information we have is that information officers have been recruited and information units in the various public offices are being set up with some logistic furniture, some computers, and the recruiter staff. And where recruiter staffs are not posted, the public institution would have to designate an officer to be the information officer who will liaise with the records office staff for information that will be requested. A function which could have easily to be performed by the records officer, because sometimes if there is an information officer in an institution which does not receive any request in a year, what then happens? It means the information officer will become redundant. But that is another question for tomorrow. That's my own opinion, not that of PRAAD. Now, PRAAD as an institution in all these matters is to provide the infrastructure for the success of the RTI. And in doing so, it has to ensure that its legislation, so at 535, is robust. So it has been in effect for over 20 years. So we need to look at it again when there is a need to review it, to capture the private sector and all other loopholes that the Act has, so that we can perform there. So there's Act 535 of 1997, which is currently in force. But still, regulation is eluding us all this while. So we hope with this, we can get budgetary allocation to ensure that we put together a regulation to put in it to the legislation. Again, PRAAD's role is to provide policies for national policies which the private or public institutions can derive from, in terms of records management policies, electronic records management policies, email policies, and all the policies that will be needed to run a records office effectively and efficiently. Again, PRAAD's role in all this is to ensure that procedures are in place, or procedure manuals are in place, which we have. We have procedure manual for records management. We have procedure manual for managing records office, for managing archives, for managing unstructured records offices, and the record center. And even we have the omnibus retention schedule. That's the general retention schedule for the management of the housekeeping records. That's records that are common to all public institutions, be it administration, personnel, finance or accounting, building and properties, and then equipment and supply. So the general or omnibus retention schedule is in place, and some institutions in collaboration with PRAAD also trying to develop their specific retention schedule, which is based on their core mandates and functions. Again, PRAAD already have staffed some institutions. So most of the ministries, departments, and agencies have the records office staff in such institutions to manage the records. So it's a matter of assisting them to build their capacities and to deliver as it's supposed to be, because it's the functions and duties and responsibility of the record class staff. So if you are not a record class staff, you allow the record class staff to do their work, because the Act even gives sanctions if you willfully deny or you deny a records officer access to records. It amounts to 6 months imprisonment or a penalty of that's 200 penalty points, or a term of imprisonment not exceeding 6 months, or both. So for the RTR to work, public institutions will have to allow records officers to do their work. And just 6 months imprisonment or 200 penalty points is not enough deterrent for some officers to still, excuse me, let me put it in code, misbehave towards records officers or disrespect records officers. And even when we talk about willful distraction, unauthorized distraction of records, and Americans, you go for 20 years, but in Ghana, it's only 3 years or 500 penalty points for both. So we have to, I believe, when the Act is looked at again, we may put stringent penalties so that the people will begin to appreciate the need and the importance of records. Now, PRAAD, I will have to collaborate with its stakeholders, which are the government of Ghana through the OACS, or the Office of the Head of Civil Service, the Data Protection Commission, the RTI Commission itself, the Ministry of Information, and the various public institutions to provide accommodation to office space for the records office. There are some places where they are accommodated. It's very disheartening. It doesn't even encourage you to come to office. How can you accommodate records office staff with records cabinet in a server room? I mean, some as if they are slaves. It doesn't augur well for the profession. So accommodation. So PRAAD, in collaboration with these stakeholders, will have to ensure that adequate accommodation is provided for the records and the records. The other thing is the storage. I mean, sometimes records officers are given one small 14 by 14 square meter office, and that is it. They are there with their cabinets and all the necessary things. Meanwhile, they need to have the records office to work from and also have a record store, because minimally records are supposed to be kept for 10 years before, if there is the need for it to be transferred to the record center, it is transferred. But most institutions do not understand or have appreciate the reason why records are supposed to be kept in a record store, or the need for them to provide an office space for records to be kept. So they'll prefer to give it to an officer, and the records will rather end up in basements, in corridors, under staircases, and all places that are not conducive for records. And then we should know that when you mismanage records, in the long run, the records will mismanage you, because if care is not taken and your personal file falls in it and is destroyed by rain or flooding or anything, then you can't come looking for your first appointment letter, because through your own negligence, you've misplaced your file. These stakeholders will need to provide the needed logistics and equipment for the record staff to adequately work with. You go to some offices and even file jackets are not there for them to file their records. Some are using flat files without flat files or ARC files, and those do not even have the file ladder on it for the needed capturing of officers who have had access to it. So, and the next is the staffing. So where the records, where public institutions lack the records officer, they need to fall on PRAAD to provide them either through secondment, posting, or transfer record officer who have gone through the mill and appreciate the work that they are supposed to carry out in the records offices. Now, in terms of electronic records management, NITA is the government agency in charge of rolling out the framework for managing e-records. I believe currently they are doing some work in 4 ministries. Previously, they tried rolling out some work, electronic records management system, but we don't know what has happened, and we hope they will get the funding to roll it out. So public institutions who also have the means of funds can also through NITA and PRAAD, because whatever they do should be in conformity to the standard or the framework that NITA and PRAAD would agree on. Because in the long run, whether electronic or not, PRAAD will also need to be assisted to have a digital repository so that all the electronic records that will be generated, and this COVID has led to we going on Zoom and using all other platforms. So the records generated through this platform will have to be captured in an electronic format, which PRAAD will have to be resourced and to have a digital repository to store those records for posterity or for future reference. At 535, PRAAD already has a responsibility to ensure public institutions comply with standards in terms of the classification scheme, in terms of how records are to be managed, and they follow the system. Closed files, when they are 150 folios or 5 years or 3 centimeters or 1 each take, ensure how letters are even routed, and then how they are captured and all that. If they don't have classification scheme, PRAAD has a standardized classification scheme. But then, as they said, in terms of classification, if the institution has one and it is working, sometimes you just work around it, and the bus sometimes to be say standard. So if that's the national standard and they are public institution, then they need to follow what the standard is for public institution, the private. And if the Electronic Transaction Act 2008 at 772 also have components for the management of records by public institutions. So with all these things, we inform PRAAD as to what to look for. The State Property and Contract Act of 1960, CA6, Section 23, also enjoys all public institutions who sign contract or agreement on behalf of the government of Ghana to deposit the original copy with the chief archivist, which currently is the director of PRAAD. And then subsection 2 of section 23 says that if the institution will need a copy to work with, PRAAD then can give that institution a certified true copy to work with, but the original should be kept with the director of PRAAD. The Anti-Money Laundering Act also as amended. Anti-Money Laundering Act 2008 at 749 as amended also has provisions for the management of records. Others are the Public Financial Management Act and its regulation. I mean, it also captures how public records are to be managed, and records officers are supposed to be abreast with this information so that they can guide their institutions and know which records that are supposed to be made available when requested by the public. In conclusion, PRAAD, we may say PRAAD is ready to partner with the RTI Commission to ensure an effective implementation of the RTI law through effective and efficient records management in the various public institutions. And once again, we should be reminded that records management, the aim of records management is ensuring that the right information is made available to the right person at the right time and at the least possible cost. So with this, I believe we can take questions and then we move on. So thanks for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayekle. We are so grateful for the deep explanations you've given to us about the role of PRAAD and how your collaborations with the RTI Secretariat. Now we'll take questions, please. If you have any questions, just click on participants and then you click on raise hands and we'll be able to, we'll unmute you, then you talk to us. And then also, you can also, in case your internet is not so smooth, you can just type at the message section the questions you want to ask, and we'll give you the chance. We'll read it out for you so that Mr. Ayekle can answer it for us. So I see Isaac's hand up. So Isaac, please talk to us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
All right. So I have a couple of questions. So you may want to note them down.
Yes. Sir.
All right. So you mentioned that PRAAD some institutions need to work with PRAAD. You mentioned NITA needs to collaborate with you guys and give you tools. You mentioned that some departments have to come to you guys and ask for staff to facilitate the RTI and all that. I want to know what PRAAD has done in relation to this to ensure that they don't have to wait for people to come to them before things are done, that they are proactive enough to ensure they collaborate and lobby for certain things to be done for them to ensure that this law is well implemented. Because we all know that they know the good things. The guys know what is good for them, but they don't really care if PRAAD is there or not. They just want to do what they want. So if you sit and want to wait for them to come to you, I'm wondering how these things are going to be achieved. So let us know now the steps you have taken, because from 2019, the law has been passed. What are you doing, or what have you done already to ensure that these guys are talking to you in preparation for the implementation? Also, I want to know how PRAAD is going to regulate private records management institutions that keep records of public institutions. Like I know the National Health Authority, they keep their records with some private records management institutions.
Facilities, yes.
And I'm wondering how PRAAD is going to have to regulate these kind of things to ensure that public records are kept in the right way and they're available for retrieval, because these private institutions are now going to be like the people you have to fall on to retrieve some of this information. But then how do you know if they are properly managing these records in their third-party facilities that they use to manage the records? My last question is, how does PRAAD exercise its authority in auditing public institutions when it comes to records management? Because I know that you would need, I think you had a name for it. You said census, right?
Yeah,
census. So and you mentioned something, you were kind of frustrated that they don't allow you guys to, they're not really interested in you guys coming around and trying to conduct the census. How do you impose the authority PRAAD has to ensure that people comply to these activities? Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. So the first of your questions is what PRAAD has done. Over the years, PRAAD has been posting staff to the various public institutions. And where there are no PRAAD staff, some institutions, through collaboration, bring people for us to train to manage the records offices for them. But then also, PRAAD has a ceiling as to staff. So until we are able to make a case through the OECS and the Public Services Commission and then the Ministry of Finance for financial clearance to increase the staff level of PRAAD so that we can make available the needed staff for all public institutions as stated by the law. So that is something we have to do through these two institutions, OACS, Office of the Head of Civil Service, to increase the staff strength of PRAAD. And again, the two is about how to regulate the private storage facilities. Now, as I said earlier, the PRAAD Act, with this, we will need to review the PRAAD Act 535, 1997, to incorporate the private management of or licensing of the private storage facilities. And to do this, then PRAAD will have to become an authority so that it can regulate all these institutions. Now, some institutions, as I said, health regulatory and those public institutions, some parastatals think they are not part of the public service, and they, because they have funds, they can then go ahead and do whatever they wish without seeking approval from PRAAD. So even if they want to use a private facility, PRAAD will need to assess that facility and give approval before they can send their public records there, so that we can also know which records at the end of the day, when they are due for disposition, can be transferred to the archives. Okay, so that also need to be looked at. And even if not, if we have even a regulation to the current act we have, I think some sessions give PRAAD, if we want to stretch it, you may say section 15, for instance, of the Act is that the director shall keep a register to be known as the National Register of Archives, in which shall be recorded the records in the National Archives and other repository under his control. So how, if there is a regulation, I'm not a lawyer though, I believe the regulation can find a way of ensuring that these private entities are consolidated, because currently they are not being regulated. After being registered, after registering with the Registrar General Department, they go about doing their own thing. Nobody supervise them or ensure they are doing the right thing. So we need to make a case.
Can I interject?
Yes, please interject.
Don't you think that even with the current act, you have the right to interfere and find out what these guys are doing with the records that are being funded by? No, these institutions are being funded by government, and your act asks you to manage government records or public records. So I think to stretch the law, it depends on how you guys want to push. It might not be.
So
you know,
if so that's my understanding is we can push the law, but if we have a regulation, that regulation will further expand on this section as to then now give us that power. But currently, I remember we still visit these institutions. We have the review unit, which responsibility it is to visit all these public institutions to ensure. So at the end of the visitation, a report is written and a recommendation given as to what they should do. But then enforcing the recommendation or enforcing or ensuring that they are following what we are asking them to do is one thing that is a challenge to us because of our logistical constraints and other budgetary allocations and all that. But with whatever we have now, we are trying to ensure that we do. But with this RTI2, I believe we are trying to position ourselves so that we can meet the challenges ahead. So,
okay, thank you so much, Mr. Isaac. I hope that you are answered. So we have very few minutes. Actually, we have very few minutes. So I was hoping maybe if other people also have other questions. But if you still have further questions,
well, let other people go ahead. Let other people go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Yawabankro, you wanted to talk, so will you want to open your mic and then talk to us? Mr. Bankro, anyone who wants to talk to us can just raise their hand and then I'll call you, or you can just chat with us by typing at the message section. Okay. Oh, okay. So he's saying that his network is what's not quite good, but he wants to know there were attempts by PRAAD to seek to regulate the private records management space a few years back. We were audited along with other companies. Perhaps their logistical budgetary constraints have restricted them. So he's confirming that PRAAD has in the past tried to audit them, but they didn't come back again. I'm sure it's hooray for them. Yeah. So Isaac, if you have further questions.
It again.
Yeah.
Okay. Isaac, we are talking about the census, and then
yes.
Yeah. So the census, the review unit does institutional, let me say, monitoring and auditing. But then the records officers in the various public institutions, fortnightly or monthly, they will need to have a timetable to be able to track whatever the file is at any given time. But officers, that's why I'm saying that section 24 of Act 535
Mr. Ayekle's network is not that smooth. So
I wanted to just comment because I think my first question was not actually answered. I wanted to know the steps that they have taken already to lobby for certain things to be done to ensure that PRAAD is well equipped for the implementation. I'm saying this because we all know, look, we've done studies in my MA, we did surveys, and then you realize that these institutions know the risks involved in not properly managing their records, but they don't really care to go out of their way to make budgetary allocations or to bring PRAAD in to help them make these things work. So PRAAD needs to find a way to lobby. PRAAD needs to have already contacted the RTI Commission. They should have been talking to NITA about how are we going to address this? This is going to affect us in this way. What roadmaps are we putting? It's not about sitting down and saying that, oh, we expect to work with them or they are to work with us. It is in theory. They need to move.
Yeah,
it's very important.
I think you're right. Yeah, you are very right. Yeah, I think I had the same thoughts when he was presenting but like he said, in the public sector, maybe Mr. Cletus will be able to give us a fair idea of their sufferings. It's not that easy to push through. Like he said, they have a lot of constraints. So I don't know. He's not back. Brock, please, do you want to comment or ask a question? Everyone is going to comment. Since he's not around, then we can close the session since our time is, we have just 4 minutes to close. So I'll take Dr. Adams' comments on the presentation and anything he wants to add for us concerning the subject. And then I'll call a few of you to also share your views with us.
Madam Host, or do I say hostess? You are doing a good job. Isaac as the originator seems to have more problems instead of coordinating the activity. I don't have much to say. I think he's done his presentation. I'm sure we all know that PRAAD has a lot of problems. Probably the two of you and Isaac are talking about do I say seeming lack of, I say seeming because I'm not part of the system, but a seeming lack of proactiveness. But sometimes when you are outside, it looks like people are not doing what they should do. Sometimes when you get in there, you will see a difference. And I'm sure, Baba, your small interactions or also distance within the public service, from their current work who have shown you that there are certain things that are not. It's easier working with corporate institution, private institution, I can assure you, compared to when you are within some of these public services. The system can be a bit choking. But I heard him talking about the LI and other things. I think PRAAD Act, the Act itself, I'm sure needs some revision. The Act itself needs some revision because since the Act was passed, no regulations have been passed, and it becomes a bit difficult operating with just an Act without regulations. And then we have had new acts that have come in that impinge on the PRAAD Act, the Data Protection Act, and then the RTI and others, I'm sure, have certain implications that maybe if a second look is taken at the PRAAD Act, we may find that there will be certain things that will need to be either added or subtracted, whatever it is. I think our speaker, presenter has done his part. If anybody has any questions to ask. Participation has not been good. I've been checking maximum 13, not counting hosts and others, and if you count all of us, 15. I'm sure people will say they are waiting for the recorded version. I have my doubts how many people actually even download the recorded version and read, But I'm sure you agree with me. Though we make noise about it, and I'm sure Isaac will do that, but well, we'll have to continue to move on. As for the content of what has been presented, I don't have anything to say now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. Pearl is saying that I second Isaac because PRAAD is missing in the implementation of RTI, which some of us are not comfortable with. Yeah, I think
I don't know what is meant by PRAAD is missing in the implementation of the RTI. PRAAD has a function to perform. Section 2 and 3, Section 3 especially of the RTI. I mean, Godwin is there, he knows it. PRAAD is a very powerful institution. It's a matter of applying its laws and then applying other people's laws. The RTI is requiring that they should prepare a procedure manual, a list of all records in this thing. So what are you waiting for? Get your staff in the ministries and department agencies to just go ahead and prepare the list. Gordon, are you there? No. Unless I'm wrong. Yes. Get your staff to...
Oh, yes,
Yes. Section 3. If you don't do it, you people will run into trouble because without it, the act cannot be implemented. You agree with me? You agree with me? Yes, Section 3. Because if you don't do your work...
Actually, there's a template. There's a template that they are working with.
Who is working with the template?
But then
the commission. Let's use the commission. Yes. But have they consulted PRAAD in that respect?
Mr. Aikla, can you help us with the answer?
No. But then as it is said, is the records officers in the various public institutions' responsibility to help the institution to put together the manual. So especially the various series of information that are available for the public. So which can be get in the records office. So without the records officer, the manual will not be complete.
Yeah.
So the records
Doc, actually, I partly agree with Pearl and Ike because if you read the act, I don't remember the section really, but it says that the act does not include records kept by PRAAD. And I'm wondering what that means. If you can help.
The archive, which is already in the public domain. It's already in the public domain, not the current and semi-current record. One is not open to the public. Then who manages those? It's a records class. Information officers will come to the records officers to request for the information on behalf of requesters.
Yeah.
So Godwin.
Yes, sir.
Now that you guys know that the commission is using a template without even consulting to see how it applies to what you guys have in place, what are you going to do? Are you guys going to go inform them that they need to toe the line, be sure that it applies to what you guys require?
Yes. Yes. That's what we have to do. So now that we are in the known, we will do the necessary follow-ups to also put it. But developing the forms is also the management services division. That's their responsibility to develop public forms.
It's not the development of the form.
To information.
It's not really the development of the form I'm talking about.
Template or form or whatever is in place.
Is the information the form is asking people to capture. It is the information that the form is asking the people to capture. That's what I'm talking about. Information,
yeah. But the information, even the section 3.2 of the RTI law, is that's B, says that the list of various classes of information the public institution has generated, and that information is in the records office. So they need to follow. So the issue is now the public, is it the records office staff that would need to put together the manual, or the RTI in collaboration with the records office staff in the public institution? So I mean the three will need to come together to put together the manual.
So then we expect you to approach them and tell them that that's what we want.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So please, do we have any other questions? Our time is up. It's 5:10. Do we have any other question? Maybe if you have any comments, if it's not a question and a comment, you can also comment on the presentation, and then we can close. So who else is here? Mr. James Brikuma. Will you want to say something? We want to comment? Just two people. I'm just calling two people to comment on the presentation, and then we can bring it to a close. So Mr. Brikuma, will you want to talk to us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the presenter has done a good job. He has identified that there is the need for review. But my question then is, how soon is PRAAD going to work towards the review of its acts to make it compliant or to make it workable with the RTI?
Yeah, Mr. Ayekule, to you.
The review to Chinese.
What's happening?
I think his internet is not good.
I think we all in the field as the professionals should encourage PRAAD to do something about their law. That we should also talk to lawyers about the regulations, because it affects all we all do. That's all we do in our various places. It looks like Doc was saying it's better working in the private areas. Even there, they don't respect the records. So we all need to put our shoulders to the field and see how we can help.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you so much, sir. Yeah, Techno, come on. Do you want to talk to us about something, please? Do you want to comment on the presentation? Techno, come on. Would you like to comment on the presentation? Okay, so I'll call the last person and then we can draw the curtain. Mr. Sami Enu, can you please comment on the presentation on a whole? If you have any comments, suggestions, we are ready to listen. Mr. Sami Enu. Okay, since Mr. Sami Enu is not ready, I'll call RAQ, R-A-Q. Can you please talk to us?
They have all muted their mics and their
mics. Oh, okay.
So I'm sure they are only on, but not very active. But I have one question.
Okay.
And it's to James. He didn't mention any particular issue with the PRAAD Act as against the RTI, and is asking for a review of the PRAAD Act to be compliant with the RTI, which came to meet which, So I'm wondering how PRAAD Act will be compliant with the RTI, unless we identify areas where they are what is overlapping or that sort of thing. I don't see the issue of compliance here, because we have to be very careful. PRAAD Act at 535 vests the authority of managing public records in PRAAD. Simple. What we need is the regulations, which I'm sure the PRAAD management themselves agree that we need the regulations, which I'm sure that if we could get the regulations, it will take into consideration all these new current developments in the information management field. And probably that's what we should all put our ways to, the shoulders to the wheel, and try to get the regulations put in place to help in the day-to-day management of the public records. That is what I can say here. When I made mention about the corporate or environment, I was talking about a hierarchy of levels and decisions and other things that are taken compared to being the public service. That is what I was talking about. When I was working at a bank years ago, I know it's years ago, the levels of the hierarchy to get decision taken were not the same as in the case of you have your budget drawn, and when you are giving the funding at the end of the day, you're approved, your budget is approved, you can carry on your response. It's not the same in the public service. That is what, those are the things I'm referring to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doc. I think I agree with you. I thought I heard the presenter talking about the arts that needs reviewing, and that's why I said that.
Yes, I also mentioned the fact that considering the new laws that are RTI, data protection and others, financial regulations and all those things, maybe some areas, and you justly said we are also not lawyers, we are all pocket lawyers. Yes. So maybe we also need to get the lawyers, probably the Attorney General's department, because the advisory board of a committee of this Records Advisory Committee has a representation from the Attorney General's office on it. So the PRAAD can always call on the Attorney General's office for help, advice as far as legal issues are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So to end, the last comment is from Mr. Cletus, and he did it through text. He says, good effort by Godwin, but PRAAD is truly missing, but not of anyone's fault. But PRAAD itself, you never have to wait for the politicians or administrators to come telling you what role to play. But you, the professional, have to take the lead in explaining what role they can and must play. So I think that's the comment from Mr. Cletus. I believe is the former director of PRAAD. So thank you so much. We are so grateful.
The name is Azangio.
Azangio.
First name, so we make it say Mr. Azangio.
Mr. Azangio, yeah. Thank you so much for the that's the lecturers and the teachers like that. They like correcting, and we are the students.
You can use a title with your first name.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, so thank you so much for the correction. Thank you all. We are so grateful.
Learn well.
Okay, I will. We are so grateful for having all of you here, and we thank you for making time to come. We didn't have the numbers, but this is recorded, so in case you were also late in joining, the video will be there, and anytime you want to, I think Mr. Armstrong will share it on the page for all of us to have it. But thank you. It has been very fruitful, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot. We hope to meet in other webinars in the future. So thank you so much, Mr. Ayekle, and we are so grateful.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
So
we will share the audio on the page, and the video will be on our YouTube page.
Okay. Yes. Let me tell everybody that we have a new YouTube page, and it's a lot of things are happening there. It's amazing. The interviews are on point. So please do well to subscribe to the YouTube channel and then check on the interviews. A lot is going to happen there. It's called I Talk with ARMAG. So please do well to visit our YouTube page. We also have a Facebook page. So if you haven't liked it yet, kindly go to Facebook and then look for Archivists and Records Managers Association, and then you like it. All these things help to promote the image of the association and our profession as a whole. So thank you so much, and we bring it to an end here. Thank you.